McDonald's is really sticking out to me as an anomaly of a stock. Let me explain. Usually, a stock fits into a couple of categories. Maybe it's a value stock. Maybe it's a dividend stock primarily. It fits well in a dividend portfolio. Maybe it's a high growth stock. McDonald's doesn't really fit any of those categories. So the last 5 years, it's gone up 53%, which isn't terrible, right? But it is about half as much as the S&P 500. It pays a decent dividend of 2.24%. It can maybe fit into a dividend portfolio, one aiming for a 3 to 4 yield, but you'd probably have to balance it out with a stock that gets a yield higher than 3 or 4%. And it's not really value either because its PE is 27. We can take a peek at its forward PE. Yeah, 26.73. So this stock is an anomaly in the sense that it really doesn't fit into any of those categories. Kind of like a average at everything, great at nothing. I don't particularly like that. Not that every stock has to fit into a specific category, but it does help, right? Let's take a look at a little bit longer. And over the last 10 years, it really hasn't outperformed much either. Actually, it's done pretty well since 2014. It's roughly mimicked the S&P 500. So maybe you count on that growth picking back up. If that's the case, this actually looks fairly valuable, and it really has done well since 2000. 2002 it would have done great. Whatever it may be. But I don't really know if they're going to keep that type of growth that matches the S&P 500. However, the dividend's good enough you don't really need to, even if you're looking for that. So I don't dislike McDonald's because of that, but it's really weird. Usually I can almost always find a stock. Well, usually my brain categorizes things as, okay, this is a good value stock, this is a good dividend stock, this is a good growth stock, it does tech, whatever it may be, this is a good hedge, or it categorizes it as a stock to avoid entirely, right? If a stock is down 80% over the last 5 years, not really interested. Even if it's usually down 30% over the last 5 years, I prefer companies that are growing, that are succeeding. Maybe you can spot a company that's about to turn it around, that's really cheap, even if it's going down. Personally, for me, I just would prefer to avoid shrinking businesses. And I'm sure I'm going to miss out a lot of profits in some cases, but that's just not personally what I'm good at in terms of knowing what stocks are doing. So I'm assuming everyone knows what McDonald's is. I don't think I'm going to have to explain what McDonald's does to anyone here, but they are in the fast food industry. I do not personally own any fast food stocks. It's not something I'm dying to get into necessarily. However, I do understand the diversification into it in the future maybe wouldn't be a terrible thing. I haven't looked at all the fast food stocks. There's definitely some that you get better growth than, right? Wingstop is growing insane, although the PE valuation is very high as well. That's definitely a high growth stock. Chipotle, maybe in that sense too. There's probably a couple more, but none that ring any bells off the top of my head. Starbucks is a little bit different, although they do drinks, right? And they're actually in a fairly similar boat to McDonald's, but I think this could probably fit in a dividend portfolio, like I said, if you balanced it out right. However, this wouldn't be necessarily at the top of my list. But like I said, I don't think it's necessarily a bad stock. I personally like McDonald's in two ways. Well, technically three. I do think it's okay for a dividend portfolio if you balance it out with a little higher paying dividend. Maybe this is one of the ones you're counting on for the growth and not necessarily the dividend aspect of it. Because if our dividend portfolios are growing, that's fine, unless you're going for a 5, 6, 7% yield for a dividend portfolio, and then it's really okay if it doesn't really go up, with some assumption that you'll reinvest some dividends. But I personally prefer the former, where it's a little bit lower yield, but you can expect it to match inflation at bare minimum or even grow. Anyways, the two other ways I like it, I do like it as diversification into the fast food space. It's huge market cap. McDonald's is going to be around in 10 years, guys. Maybe if you're super worried about Ozempic, people are going to eat less. But even then, fast food is more of a luxury than something really cheap. You just got to scarf down anyway. Certainly since post-COVID, right? Prices have gone up an insane amount. So I don't know, but I'm not worried about McDonald's long term. I think it's a good hedge. I also think if you like the combination of the three aspects, right? It's not insane growth, it's not insane dividend, and it's not, insane value either, but it's a good mix of all three. It pays a decent dividend. It's had decent growth. Certainly if you look at more of a 15-year track record instead of a 5. And it also is decently valued. I mean, 27 isn't great, and it doesn't sound great, but that's what the S&P 500 is right now, right? The S&P 500 is almost exactly 27. So this isn't, by that metric. Now that factors in tech, right? But how many, juggernauts of fast food and industry are there? There's not a whole lot either. So the top end stocks are always going to have some sort of premium. So you could make the argument that this is a moderately valued stock. Maybe it's not undervalued PE, but it's not overvalued either. So if you factor in all those things and say, yeah, I just want to hold McDonald's, that's fine. That's the reason I would buy it. Am I going to buy it? Probably not anytime soon. Not necessarily because I think it's bad, just because capital is finite and I would rather have it in other things, at least in the short term, right? A couple years. But who knows? I will probably own McDonald's one day. I'd be surprised if I never did. So this is one to keep an eye on. Maybe if it's PE drops, people are looking at other things, assuming the PE isn't just dropping because they're doing horrible, right? The dividend's decent. If it gets a little bit more fairly valued, maybe it'll be closer to 3. Maybe they focus more on the dividend. I don't know. McDonald's, I think they'll be fine. I don't hate it. I don't love it either. Let's look a little bit more into what other people think. Schwab thinks it's going to be a C, which sounds bad, but that's actually fairly fine. It'll be a middling performing stock, and believe it or not, most stocks go up over time. So even though a C sounds bad, it's fairly average, and average is fine. They reiterated that one day ago. Morningstar gives it a 2. Wide economic moat. I hate the 0, 3, 10 kind of scaling here, right? None, narrow, wide. I'd probably give it a 7 or an 8. You got to give that brand awareness, but then again, they're just serving hamburgers and fries. So there's nothing incredibly proprietary about that, except the brand, which is amazing in terms of widely known, right? Who doesn't know what McDonald's is? You're not from the Western world if you don't. Certainly not America. Argus gives it a buy. Market Edge gives it long. Buy. ESG score is average to slightly above average, whatever you think of that. The dividend is decent. They haven't hiked it in the last year, which is mildly concerning, but not terrible. What do some analysts think? Oops. No, this is the right one. Yeah, they missed the last couple, but barely. I'm not particularly concerned about that. Maybe it means they're probably not going to beat these significantly, but I don't think that's too concerning. Most people say buy. Interesting. I don't necessarily disagree, right? If you made me pick buy or hold, I'd probably say, I didn't think this through before I asked myself this question. If I had to say buy or hold, I'd probably say hold. But like I said, I think it's a fine buy. I really do. Maybe I would say buy. If you had infinite capital, it depends on the situation. So many stocks are situation dependent. It's right about the analyst price targets. You see, that doesn't make any sense. How is 2/3 of people saying buy? More than 2/3 of analysts are saying buy, and yet it's right at the price targets. Maybe all of them don't do price targets. I don't know. Personally, I don't put too much weight into what analysts think. I factor into the bigger picture. I know some people personally who really factor in analyst price targets into it. Personally, I just factor it in. Why are the analysts all saying sell, right? That would be a thing if I like the stock. Why are they all don't? Why don't they all? But usually you're not going to get any groundbreaking stuff from analysts. Anyways, that's for a different video. I appreciate all of you watching this far. If you like or disagree or dislike, whatever, let me know down in the comment section. I appreciate if you did enjoy the video, if you did leave a like or subscribe. It helps my channel out a lot, and it's free for you to do. So I do notice my videos picking up significantly after they get likes most of the time. Not every time, but I'd say 8 out of 10 videos that get a like and someone that watches early perform better than the average one does. So anyways, I appreciate all of you watching, and if you enjoyed, I already said that. So anyways, I appreciate all you guys watching. So anyways, I'll catch all of you next time, hopefully. See you.